Okay, 6.4, you have to find the zeros of these polynomials. To find the zeros, all you do is you set each of these parentheses equal to 0 and solve. So I add 1, so x equals 1 is one answer, and x equals a -4 is another answer. But you don't just have one answer, you also have two of them. You have three answers. You have two of them and only one of them. Instead of writing it out twice, I just put a 2 after it to show that there are two ones. Set this one equal to 0 and set this one equal to 0. Three is an answer, but how many threes? 5 of them. -4 is an answer, but how many of them? 2 of them. This got cut off, but that's supposed to have a 1 after it with a 4. Set 3x equal to 0, set x minus 3 equal to 0, and set 2x plus 1 equal to 0. Set all of these equal to 0. X equal to 0, x equals 3, and 2x equals a -1, so x equals a -1/2. But there's 4 of them, there's 3 of them, and there's only 1 of them. So those are called the zeros. Okay, the next part. You're making a polynomial. So basically you're going to write this out twice, x plus 3 times x plus 3, because you have two of them. And then you're going to make a box, and you're going to put an x here and a 3 there and an x there and a 3 there, and you're going to fill in your box by multiplying. See how I filled in my box by multiplying? And then these two can be put together. So my final answer is x squared plus 6x plus 9. So that's the second part of the assignment. Let's do one more. Let's do two more, I guess. I didn't see that there's another one down below. You're going to put an x and a -2 and an x and a +3. To fill in all your boxes, all you're going to do is multiply. These two can be put together. So my final answer is x squared. 3x take away 2x is a +1x minus 6 equals 0. And the last one, I'm only going to make an x here and an x and a 1 here, because the 1 only has 1, so x squared and an x final answer. So that's the second part of the assignment. Now comes the very, very, very tough part of the assignment. So here we go. I'm going to go nice and slow, and I got 3 examples. The first thing you're going to do is what you just did on that first section. 2 is an answer, because if I set this equal to 0, I'd get 2, and there's 2 of them. -1 is another answer, and -3 is another answer. There's 2 of them, imaginary 1 there and imaginary 1 there. Okay, so far so good. Okay, now you're going to put the leading coefficient, the highest degree, and the end behavior down, just like you did on 6.3. We're going to tie this all together. So you have to try to figure out, when you put this all back together again, I want you to circle the parentheses. The parentheses is going to tell you the highest degree. The highest degree is 2 plus 1 plus 1 is 4. That's the highest degree, and that is an even number. That's an even number. The leading coefficient is the number out in front of the first parenthesis, and there's an imaginary 1 right there. And that's a positive number. a positive and even from yesterday is both facing up, and I'll put them on the board so you know that positive and even are both facing up. Okay, I'm gonna do more of these, so hopefully you caught on so far. The circled ones you add up, and that'll give you the highest degree. 4 is an even number. Then the leading coefficient is the number way out in front, and it's an imaginary 1, and that's positive. And now I got my end behavior. So far so good? Okay, now what do we do with these numbers? This number here, and this number here, you're gonna place on the x-axis. And here's the x-axis. You're gonna place a number on 2. You're gonna put one at a -1, and you're gonna put one at a -3. So that's what those green numbers are. The last dots, this one right here and this one right here, are gonna start up and end up. It's called the end behavior. Okay, now comes kind of the confusing part. I'm gonna blow up a dot. You can only do 2 things with each of the dots. You can either go through the dot like this, or you can bounce off of the dot. If the powers are odd, you go through. If the powers are even, you bounce off. So, you look at the number -3, which is right here, and 1 is an odd number, so I go through the dot. Now I'm going to get to my next dot, which is a -1, and this is an odd number, so I go through the dot. And then I'm going to curve to get to the other one, and when I get to the other one, I am done, because they're all connected. Okay, let's try another one. This might be a 2-dayer, so I need to list all of these. I need to list LC, HD, and EB, but the first thing I'm going to do is what I did on the front page. Set this equal to 0, set this equal to 0, set this equal to 0, and set this equal to 0. So x equal to 0 is only 1. The next answer is +2. And whoops, there are 2 of them, because there's a power of 2. Another answer, if I set this equal to 0, is a -3, and there's 3 of them. And the last answer, I'll put it over here, I ran out of room, -4, and there's 5 of them. And that's what you would have done in the first page. Okay, I'm going to circle the parentheses. Circle the parentheses and circle HD. You're going to add them all up, and you're going to get 5 plus 1 is 6, and 6 plus 5 is 11. That's the highest degree is 11. That is an odd number. 11 is an odd number. The leading coefficient, everybody go back up and look to see what's out in front. There's a -1, imaginary -1 out in front. It's called the leading coefficient. And that's a negative, and it's odd. If you look at your chart over here on the board, if it's negative and odd, it starts up and ends down. Okay, now comes the next part. What do you do with the numbers out in front? We'll change colors. We'll change them to blue. These numbers out in front, you place on the x-axis. So you're going to put one at a -4. You're going to put a dot at 0. You're going to put a dot at 2, and you're going to put a dot at -3. Those blue ones, the first numbers is where you put your dots at. And on the ends, the one on the left ends up, and the one over here ends down. Okay, so that's the process. Add a -4, which is this one right here. It's an odd number, so it goes through the dot. Now I'm going over to this dot, and at -3, that's also odd, so it goes through the dot. At 0, it's odd, it goes through the dot. And this one's even, so it bounces off of it. Final answer. Okay, let's do another one. I think we have one more. Do we have one more? Let's see. Yeah, we have 2 more. Let's do this one up here. first thing you're going to write down is LC, HD, and EB. -2 is one of the answers, and there's two of them. -1 is one of the answers, and there's one of them. 3 is another answer, and there's 3 of them. That's the first thing you have to do. I'm going to circle these, and I'm going to add them up, and that's what goes under highest degree, which is 6. And that's an even number. The number out in front is a negative number, so it's negative and even. The end behavior is facing down. End behavior is facing down. What do you do with these other numbers? This one right here, this one right here, and this one right here go on the x-axis. So I'm going to put one at -2, one at -1, and one at a +3. I know my last dot ends down, and my end dots end down. So I look at a -2, and that's an even number. It bounces off of that one, and now it's got to curve up to that one. And at a -1, it's odd, so it goes through. And I'm going over to here to 3, and it goes through because those are odd. Final answer. Okay, last one. -1 is one of my answers, and there's 2 of them. 3, and how many do we have 3's? 2 of them. And -4, and 1 of them. So that's the first thing you do. Leading coefficient, highest degree, and behavior. Let's see what the leading coefficient is. There's an imaginary positive one right there. So this is just a positive. Highest degree is when you add up all the parentheses. It's a 5, so it's odd. It needs to be positive and odd. If you look at your chart, positive and odd starts down and ends up. Okay, now what do we do with these numbers that we haven't used yet? Those go on the x-axis. So one at -4, one at a +3, and one at a -1. So that's where those dots go. I know the last dot to the left is going to start down, and I know the dot over there is going to end up. So it starts down and ends up. I'm going to look specifically at a -4, and this is an odd number, so it goes through the dot. And then I got to curve over to this one and look to see it at -1. This is an even number, so it bounces off, and then it bounces off of that one also because it's even. Final answer. This is probably the hardest thing that you're going to do this year, so probably have to break this up into 2 days, 6.4. We'll see what happens.